Okay, so going on what we did yesterday, let's just recap what we walked away with. So what is the subject of the Mishneh Torah? All of halacha. From what standpoint? Psak. Okay, good. Are you familiar with the distinction between theoretical and practical books? This is a good handy thing to know.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we use the distinction, but if you had to define the difference between theoretical and practical, what would you say? And this is for all nonfiction texts fall into these categories. So it's just a handy little thing to have.
That which translates into action.
Okay, so can you define theoretical not as a negative? Can you define it?
What the thing is versus
yeah.
how to work with it.
Okay, good, very good. All right, so the best, cleanest definition I've seen is a theoretical book is a book that tells you what is or is not true. Practical is how to do or make something. Okay, and so Mishneh Torah is a practical book, and it's like I said, it's a practical book on all of halacha. And by all of halacha, what is he including in the corpus of halacha here? Well, like specifically, like if you had to subdivide all of halacha. No, sorry, not like that. Kinds of halacha, d'oraisa, d'rabbanan, and he also mentioned one other thing, which we didn't know what he meant. Yeah, he says the gederos of the Gaonim, right? Yeah. Okay. So we don't know exactly what it means yet. So that's the subject. What occasion prompted the writing of the Mishneh Torah that we've seen so far? I mean, he's going to elaborate on it.
The Gemara's hard to
he definitely alluded to that, right, by saying that people can't understand the language of the Gemara. I guess what implicitly from the fact that he's going to do this, what did we infer about like the need?
People will have a hard time figuring out what to do.
Right, there's something that is getting in the way of like knowing what to do, right? And we also contextualize it by saying that the closest thing to the Mishneh Torah up until here was the Rif, and that's not on all of halacha, and it's not written as Piskei Halacha. We didn't even talk about this also, right? Because the Rif doesn't rewrite things in his own language. He'll tweak stuff, but he doesn't like formulate things. You know, he preserves the language of the Gemara most of the time and just omits the stuff we don't paskin by. The audience, what do we infer about the audience?
The average person.
The average person, and how do we know that?
Because he's trying to make it like he's writing for brevity and clarity of language.
Right. Those are the two factors, right? Brevity and clarity of language. And so he's not writing for people who want a full presentation of the subject. And he's also not writing for people who can only understand, Aramaic, right? He's writing for a language that everyone can understand. Purpose, we said, is to teach practical halacha, to guide action. And then we haven't seen much about how he's portrayed himself other than as very ambitious. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's go on now. Oh, and then we said in terms of the contents, he's going to try to include either an answer to every practical question or to give you the yesod from which you can learn out the question without iyun rachok, without like a lot of analysis. And that's another thing that indicates that this is not for just the elite. This is for the average person to be able to take it and rely on it.
Wait, so I thought yesterday we were saying iyun rachok means going to other books or other external sources.
He does say that, but I don't think he defines that as iyun rachok. Let's just read that last part again, just to rev up into what we did before. He says on page, hold on, so much easier to use this thing when flipping pages. Where's the line? Is it page 2? Yeah, page 2, second paragraph. This is after he says the language stuff. By footnote 16, the sentence that footnote 16 starts with, the echlo bo kol ma shniskaim v'nisbar b'nivrei Torah. I'm going to clarify everything from the words of the Torah to the point where no question escapes which is needed that I shouldn't mention it. Or I'll mention the foundation from which you can learn the answer to that question easily and without analysis that is rachok. So I guess you are right that rachok could mean like you don't have to go far afield in order to answer it, but I'm also right from the word kalos, right? Bekalos.
Right. And then right. Bekalos,
yeah.
It's not two separate things.
Right. I mean, I was taking rachok as like, we say karov often means like easy, you know, like accessible.
Sure.
But you're right. I don't exactly know what this is. In fact, you know what we could do? Let's check another Rambam translation. So, do you know who the other classic translator is?
Oh, Ibn Tibon.
Yeah, Ibn Tibon. T-bone steak. Yeah. So let's see how he does it. What was that?
No,
It's not. Apparently, it's not Tibon. It's T-bone. Yeah. So Ibn, I believe this is the Ibn Tibon one here. Let's see. So he says. Where does it begin? Here we go. Okay, so he says, "V'ashlim bo kol ma he's amis v'hisbar mimamer haTorah achlo yachzar shum she'ela shetzricha shelo azkirena o azkir shoresh teitze mimenu hashe'ela hahi maher bli iyun dak," without. Then he said he's going to include everything from all the dinim to the point where you don't need anything else after the Torah.
Right. And it's not on my mind or I think it's no meaning. I can't hear you. I think
Sorry.
you're muted.
I mean, you can't even tell that I'm talking because of my mask. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the internet went funny here. Yeah, okay, anyway. All right, so we said, he says you don't need anything other after the Torah for... Right, well, you don't, well, in other words, how did the Rambam fend off the charge of, you're telling me to throw away all my books? That you need for halakha, right? That you need for halakha, for practical halakha, exactly, right? But for theoretical study, you definitely need the Talmud and the Rishonim and all of that stuff. Okay, onward. New part. We're at the kasher, right? I think that's where we're at. Okay, so the kasher kivanti b'machashavti el hatachlis hazos. Once I directed myself and my thoughts to this purpose or this objective, tarti belivi. You know where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay, I explored in my mind al ofen chalukas achibur hazeh v'siduro regarding the division of this compendium and its order. Heach roy lios. How is it proper to do? Should I divide it like the Mishnah and follow in its footsteps? So who did that? The Rif. Okay, good, right? So the Rif, I mean, the Gemara did also, but like the Rif in terms of the Rambam, that's the closest thing. O achalik chaluka acheres va'aktim va'acher kfi ma shechayev ha'iyun shehu haroy v'hayoser kal lilmod. Or should I divide it in a different manner and make things come earlier and later according to what the subject necessitates? What analysis dictates? Make it as easy to learn as possible. Okay.
Wait, so
now,
is he saying the breakdown of the Mishnah was not good for you?
Yes, he is. That's a good point, right? Is that the breakdown and ordering of the Mishnah did not lend itself, was not based on the consideration of what's easiest to learn, right? Do you know where you would go to find the? I know you probably know this. I don't know. Do you know where you go to find an explanation for why the Mishnah was ordered the way it was?
Well, doesn't the Gemara do it sometimes?
The Gemara does do it sometimes.
Or you mean the halachos in the Mishnah?
No, the Masechtos, I guess.
I don't know what you're referring to.
In other words, Zev pointed out that the
Oh no, sorry. I understand the topic of what you're saying.
Okay.
I don't know what particular thing you're referring
I'm
to.
saying if you okay, right, so right.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know
so
what your answer is.
yeah, I was just asking a general question of like where could you find someone to explain the order of the Mishnayos? I only know one place, but I'm sure there are many.
For sure.
Does he? That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
He says, he says that there isn't an order.
Oh, he says there isn't an order. Okay.
Yeah, except for in like a few places.
Interesting. So the Rambam disagrees, right? The Rambam. So the place that I was thinking of is if you look in the Rambam's Hakdama to the Pirush Mishnayos, he explains the order of the Masechtos,
Right.
and it's not. I would say it's not ordered in the same, according to the same scheme. Like sometimes he'll explain why one comes after the other. Sometimes he'll explain like a chunk of different Masechtos, but that's the closest thing I know of like explain having an order of the Mishnayos. I don't remember if he says there why, like what the principle is that the Mishnah was ordered by, but it's definitely not ease of learning.
It's actually interesting because he was asked about the order of like specifically also he was asked about how they were ordered, and then there were some specific examples about Seder Zmanim, and he's like, there's not an order, but if you want to know why we do it in this order, it's probably because of this. And his order is totally different.
Oh, weird. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's another question. I don't know when the order was established or whatever. Yeah. Okay, so so that's where he's torn between. Now, why would he? If the goal is to make things easy to learn, then it seems like that would be the obvious division. So what's his hesitance in terms of like making things in the order of the Mishnah? Why is he even bringing it up? Yeah.
I think the Mishnah was organized so that it'd be easier to pertain as opposed to this is supposed to be easy to look up. To find a particular law. Interesting.
Okay, that is definitely a possibility. Is that a sure going thing also that the Mishnah was ordered based on retention?
No, that's my understanding.
Okay, because it's interesting. He's going to turn out to say that this is organized for ease of retention, or at least that's one of the.
Really?
Yeah, you'll see. But so why else would he make it
Like the Mishnah.
like the Mishnah? Yeah.
I guess he would want to. He doesn't want to be being mechadish too much.
Okay, so that's one possibility. Is for whatever reason Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi ordered it this way. We don't want. We are. It's healthy to be reluctant to mess with Masorah phenomenon. Like to deviate from that for no good reason. So that's one possibility. I know that's not like really answering it because we don't really know why Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi ordered it that way.
Yeah, I also have a semi answer based on that.
Sure.
But also it could be that it's helpful to not have multiple different organizations to remember, because then you can easily remember what's organized where, because everything has the same.
Okay, right. So that's another thing also is that for the sake of the learner, then coming up with a whole new scheme when it's not necessary would be a downside. Actually, you could have another. Who else made this decision to write a halakha code and went with a pre-existing halakha code for the sake of ease? The most famous halakha code, Shulchan Aruch in the Torah, right? Is that he could have theoretically made his own order, but he kept it in line with the Torah, and then the other possibility is even though he's writing this for practical purposes, if a person were to learn the Mishneh Torah as an aid to his study of other texts of Torah Sheba'al Peh, then keeping it in line with the Mishnah's order would lend itself to that.
But isn't it not supposed to be used that?
Right. So that's what I'm saying is he's saying that it shouldn't be used that way. But if I'm saying that he's bringing this up as a factor that he's taking into account, so ultimately he decides not to. But it is something that is going to give him pause, at least. Okay. So then he goes on and he says, "Az nisbarli." Then it became clear to me shechalukaso hatova biyoser, that the best division possible tihiyeh sheyaseh halachos b'makom hamasechtos sheb'mishnah, is to make sections of halacha in place of the tractates of the Mishnah. Kach sheyamer bo hilchos sukkah, hilchos lulav, hilchos mezuzah, hilchos tzitzis. So that's the Rambam we're familiar with. Sections based on the halachos. So that's division 1. Okay. Now, if I asked you before we read this, which I should have done, what is the Rambam's primary division when he's dividing stuff in the Mishneh Torah? Sfarim, right? So it is interesting that I don't think he mentions this later on, but he apparently that was not the first division. So sections of halacha, okay, then V'she'achalek kol klalus leprakim. Then each of these general categories I would divide into chapters. V'halachos and halachos, which we call halachos katanos. Kamosha osa Mishnah, like the Mishnah does. Sure, going is that is that a thing that Rav Shira Gaon holds that the Mishnah was divided into halachos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what do you mean by divided into halachos?
So, for example, we divvy up each parak of Mishnah into Mishnayos.
Yeah, I think that's basically halachos, and the halachos are in a specific order.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely the order's there, but let's say like I was kind of under the impression that each parak, it's just chunks of Mishnah, and then the divisions were really like a publishing thing.
So. And if you look at like, let's say a Gemara versus a Mishnah, let's say a Mishnayos, they have very different divisions.
Right.
Which I assume it's just publishing.
Yeah, I think so also.
Wait, so hold on. So he's saying that I'm going to separate halachos, whereas the Mishnah didn't do that.
He's saying it's like the Mishnah, right? Kamosha osa Mishnah.
But are we saying that the Mishnah didn't do
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying that I'm not familiar. This is new to me that the Mishnah divided into halachos.
Yeah, I think the way that Rosh Hashanah talks about it is that within each Masechta, the halachos are ordered. He doesn't say the Mishnah. He says.
Yeah.
He says like I guess.
Right. Yeah. So that does make sense to me. So maybe that's just what he means is that the statements are ordered. Okay. Then he says, Ad sheyihi derech mashal behilchos tefillin perek rishon, perek sheni, perek shlishi, revi. I don't know why the Rambam has to tell us what prakim are. Like example, for example, first chapter, second chapter, third chapter.
It was like not a thing.
Maybe yeah, you're right. I don't know what the conventions were back then.
Yeah, right. Maybe he made it up.
I mean, they didn't have.
Right. That could be like, here's an example, like there weren't chapters in Torah B'Chsav, right? There's just parshas, psuchos, and sumos. That's a good point, right?
Yeah, and like the idea of like an index of things is just not like, definitely wasn't like a common concept.
Right, that's also true. And I'm thinking something else now also. Let's say he just said, Echalek kol klalus leprakim v'halachos k'mo she'oseh Mishnah, and he stopped there. And didn't say Perik Rishon Sheni Shlishi Revi'i. So you might think that the essence of the prakim is just the groupings of material, but that the orders don't matter. But the fact that there's a Rishon Sheni Shlishi Revi'i means there's an ordering to the prakim.
I see.
Yeah, so that might be also. Yeah. V'chol Perik Yihye Mechulak Halachos Halachos, and then each Perik is divided into many particular laws. Kadei lahakel yediaso al peh lemi sheyirte lilmod mimeno davar al peh. So that the person who wants to learn it bal peh, that's the retention thing I was talking about, can learn it orally. Yeah. So this is something that I got to rant about for 1 second here. Do you have your edition of the Rambam here? Yeah. And I'm just going to do something on screen. This is a PSA that I always make whenever I have the opportunity because it's essential for all people to know. I'm just going to share the screen here. Yeah. Okay. So look at you'll be the representative of it because I don't know what the difference is between there and other ones. Okay. Look at Yesodei HaTorah Perek Aleph. Okay, and I'm going to share this on the screen. Okay, so. In Perek Aleph, okay, Halacha Aleph, what is the last word in your Halacha Aleph? Himatzo. Okay, good. Sorry, no, good or bad? No, bad. Just 1 second. I want to look at the Rambam in my hand right now. I was. So it's a little out of thing. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. So what I meant to say is bad. Okay. So
Good falling into the trap.
What was that?
Good falling into the trap.
Good falling into the trap. Yes. Right. So there is basically what happened was the Rambam divided the halachos as he said. Okay, and the purpose of it is so you can remember it al peh, but subsequent publishers came along and made their own division, okay, which does not correspond with the Rambam's. So, for example, on the screen I have here, and in my this copy here, which I'm now realizing is probably going to be reversed on the recording. The Rambam intended the whole first paragraph to be one halacha and to end with the word mehem. Okay. Actually, if you want to take a look at this also.
But the whole.
So you see that first paragraph there?
Yeah.
So the letters indicate the publisher's divisions, Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. Mm-hmm. And then the Rambam's division, though, is the paragraph. Uh-huh. So you see, for example, here, the publisher includes Gimel. So according to the publisher, the Gimel is V'im yale al hadash ein kol nimtzayim milvado mitzuim hu levado yeh matzoi v'lo yivtel hu lebitulam shekol nimtzayim strichim lo v'hu baruch hu eino tzarech lehem lecha mehem lefikach ina mitaso kamitas echa mehem. But the Rambam says lefikach is a new paragraph. Uh-huh. So if you read this in the standard editions of the Rambam, then you would not get that division.
I see.
And this is throughout the entire Mishneh Torah, and it's a travesty that the Rambam made his own divisions, and you can learn conceptual things from the way he divided it. But then the publishers came and just messed it all up. Now the good thing that yours does is it does have a little line, a very faint line if you squint, I think, to indicate where the Rambam. You should have one between mehen and lefikach, or do you not have that?
I don't see where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's at least it's telling you where the Rambam divided it. Uh-huh. My favorite setup though is when it actually makes paragraph breaks where the Rambam intended it, because then you see what he holds as a conceptual unit. You know.
Wait, so every time there's a line in that version?
In that version,
new halacha?
It's a new halacha. It's the Rambam's division of halachos. Yeah, and then
so anything where there's like all
those are all publishers. Yeah. It's a rude awakening. And then just look over here for 1 second, just so I can show you on the screen. So in the Machon Mamre version, what they do is, this is a little bit more confusing here, is they put the Rambam's division as bold, and then in brackets they put the publisher's divisions. So at least you can tell, and at least they keep the Rambam's paragraphs. But it's just like, yeah, and like it's an amazing thing. Like just in this example, I mean, we're going to go into this eventually when we learn it, but lefikach eina mitaso kamitas echa mehem. The fact that the Rambam puts that in a separate paragraph means that it's part of the topic of God's reality, whereas the first topic is God as an independent existence, and those are two different concepts. Whereas according to the publisher, lefikach eina mitaso kamitas echa mehem is grouped in with God being an independent existence. Now that may or may not make a difference. Sometimes it is, sometimes it doesn't, but it's yeah.
What do you mean by him as an independent existence versus his reality?
That's what we would have to ask. But see, you wouldn't even ask that question if I guess that's the silver lining of the publishers dividing it this way, is we can ask what's the nafkamina, Yeah, and I guess we'll ask them when we get to that section. Okay. Yeah, all right, so that's the PSA. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now we can be policy about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to clarify here. So even though the Rambam says the reason why he makes the divisions into halachos is he says to make it easier for you to remember it. It is conceptual. Like it is. It's not like he just made the division. It's not purely memory trick, right? It's a conceptual ordering that makes it easier to remember, and that's true of all of the Rambam's divisions. That by organizing it in let's say like the ordering of the prakim. Like here's my favorite example. If you take the Mishneh Torah and you go to Sefer Nezikin, okay, let me just share this on the screen also. Isaac, if you want to use this, I can. Okay. So Sefer Nezikin, which is in. Hold on, I'm moving this around. Sefer Nezikin is the fourth from the end. So you, once you got it there, let me know.
After Kenyan?
It's before Kenyan, I think.
Nezikin, got it.
Yeah. So look at the orderings of the sections here. Hilchos Nizke Mamon, which is if you look at the beginning of Nezikin there, I'll have a list. So Nizke Mamon, which is property damage, Geneva, then Gazela Nevada, and then chovel umazik, gzeil and is robbery and lost objects. Chovel umazik is wounding, and then rotzeach and shmiras nefesh is murder and preserving of life. So you can. So what is the ordering of those sections? How would you characterize the ordering of those sections?
Wait, where do you see that breakdown?
Niske mam. Oh, let me see this for 1 second here.
I'm in Rotzeach.
Oh yeah. So if you look all the way back at the beginning here, let me just show you here. If you look at the very
all the way at the beginning.
yeah after Tara,
I see.
like should be like the first page of Nezikin.
Oops.
That's okay. This is why we have a Rambam Bekius here, is just so you can familiarize yourself with the Rambam.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So you see, so
right.
Niske Mamon, Geneva, Gazela of Aveda, Chovu Mazik, and Rotzeach and Shmiras Nefesh.
Yeah. So it seems like it goes from like money things down to like, person.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's a good way to say it, right? So I mean, you could look at it in two ways. You could also look at it as in severity.
Sure.
So right, the least severe is damage involving the property itself. Then more severe is Geneva, when you're taking someone's property, not just damaging it. Gazela is more invasive because you're taking their property, but you're doing an act of violence against them. Chovel Mazik is you're doing an act of violence against their body, and then Rotzeach Shmiras Nefesh is you're taking their life. So the fact that he ordered it that way, it helps with memory, because now if you want to remember where it is, then you can think about it. But also, like, it's a conceptual order,
Yeah.
And that helps with memory because you're giving. Okay, when I used to teach study skills in Shalhavet, then there are good memory tricks and bad memory tricks, and the two categories of memory tricks or of types of memory are maintenance rehearsal and elaborative rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal is like someone tells you a phone number and you just repeat it again and again and again, which can help you remember stuff for a short time, but it doesn't stick in your memory. Elaborative rehearsal is when you endow the thing with a layer of meaning, and then it sticks in your mind. So there are artificial forms of that where you, let's say, make a story to remember your shopping list, or the memory palace where you make images associated with stuff. But then there's ways to endow it with meaning that stem from the nature of the subject, which is what the Rambam is doing, is he's taking all of halacha and putting them into meaningful categories that give you actual insight into the nature of those halachos. So it's bonus. It's giving you conceptual insight and memory capacity.
Right. I think actually Mishneh also like that too. I mean, I don't have so much experience with it.
Yeah.
But I can say from I've done Mishneh Torah twice.
Yeah.
And I also learned some individual things in depth. But the first paragraph is introduction to how you count the guy, and
yeah.
The second is in terms of how the inspection goes. Third is introduction to the particulars of Nigayim. Fourth, again, I don't know every paragraph so well, but it's very clear exactly what each paragraph is. Yeah, right. And it doesn't surprise me that the Mishnah has that, because that was Baal Peh, or it was meant to facilitate learning Baal Peh. And a good exercise to do for this reason is so back in my day, the good Rambams just had the text itself. The fancy schmancy Generation Z Rambams, what they'll do, the good ones, and this is a complaint and a praise, they will title each parak with the contents of the parak. So it's good in the sense that when you read it, it'll reinforce the conceptual order. It's bad in that it robs you of the ability to do it yourself. And if you define it on your own, let's say I'm sure we've all done parts of Hilchos Tshuva before. If you go through each parak of Hilchos Tshuva, ask yourself, how would I define this parak? So you'll find some of them are very easy and some of them are very hard. So for example, in the Hilchos Tshuva, first parak, I'm gonna rob you of the ability now, but I won't take it all. First one is mitzvahs vidui. Then what is tshuva? Okay, so those are easy, and I won't say other stuff. But then if you go to 7, and you read through all of chapter 7, the question is what is the unity in this parak? And it is a challenge, and by thinking about it, you end up gaining more from the learning. So. And I haven't checked to see what the Generation Z version does for that, Yeah. So what the Rambam, I mean, he kind of downplays this in some ways, maybe because he hadn't fleshed it out yet in terms of the full vision at this point in the Sefer Mitzvos. But it's
this is why like my Rabbi Sachs, my Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, not the Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, would say that the Rambam wrote the first encyclopedia of halacha, which is different than a dictionary. Like a dictionary is ordered, and you'll know how to access it, but it's not a conceptual order. An encyclopedia, I guess what I mean by encyclopedia is within each entry in the encyclopedia, there's a conceptual ordering of that sugya, and that's what the Rambam is trying to do for halacha. There's also a question of how much of the Rambam's judgments in this area were guided by purely conceptual concerns, and how much it was guided by aesthetic concerns. For example, you could call it aesthetic choice, coincidence, or hashgacha pratis. There are exactly 1,000 chapters in the Mishneh Torah, right? That's the famous thing. So like, right, and like, are you really telling me like if you just divide everything conceptually, it's going to just turn out to be 1,000, or like did the Rambam like hedge it a little bit? Like gematria, people like adding one or taking away one. Yeah. Okay, so that's your overview of the orderings, which we'll see again when he goes through the Mishneh Torah Hagdama itself. Okay, the whole parak. Oh, we read that. Okay, ubarur. Oh, also there's a basic question here. Okay, according to the Rambam, why is it important to know it al peh? We know why in the day it was, because that's how you preserve the Masorah.
It's not. He's saying if you want to.
Yeah, he does say if you want to, right? But maybe he could also say ohev as little halachos, like like he doesn't have to just
Yeah.
So according to his purpose that he's trying to achieve, why would it be good to know it all peh?
Well, the whole point of the Sefer is to help you and like the halacha, if you don't know it by heart, then it matters.
Exactly, right? Is the whole point is to know what to do. So if you know it by heart, then it's even more eminently practical than looking it up, So he wants to make it easy to learn and easy to remember so that you could put it into practice easier, yeah.
I have a different understanding, which is that, I think, like, for the some person, they're not going to learn it all that, but I think for like to make fun of them, they I think would. And I think also just in terms of like scarcity of books, it's like
that's also true.
So
yeah.
Like it wasn't like I don't think that at this point it was like fully shifted to everything being written down the same way that we have. Like so, like I think it's to a certain extent like a default understanding of like how.
Okay, that's definitely true. Right? So it's practical from his particular mission perspective and practical from a reality of books perspective. Yeah. Okay, let's go on. Ubarur she'im ti. We're at 4 lines from the bottom. Ubarur she'im ti hachaluka kach. It's clear that if the division is like that, ein roy l'chalik dine mitzvah misuyemes aseh o losa aseh b'shtei klalios, then it is not proper to divide the laws of a specific mitzvah into aseh or los aseh in 2 groupings. Ella kol hachaluka hadrusha ba tie beprakim shebos haklalos. Rather, the entire division of that subject will be in those prakim in that klal. Plain English means if you're going to do, let's say like Hilchos Avodah Zarah, where you've got, well, that's a bad example. Let's say like Malchalos Asuros, where you've got a handful of mitzvos aseh and a bunch of los asehs. You're not going to make 2 separate sections. You're going to group them all as Malchalos Asuros, and then within that you'll see the asehs and los asehs. Yeah. Okay, and then he says, Upamim tiyena bichlalos achas mitzvos mispar. Sometimes one general category will include a few mitzvos, several mitzvos. Im mipnei sheish lehen inyan echad hakolalan. Mitzvos rabos lamatara achas. Okay, so now he's getting a little subtle here. So in his sections of halacha, he says sometimes the grouping will be based on the fact that they have one topic or theme, and sometimes it'll be based on the fact that they have one objective. Okay, and unfortunately, he only gives an example of the first one. Okay, he says, Lamashal, kasher adabra al avodah zara ve'ekba b'psichas klalos zo hilchos avodah zara. Hari adun bichlalos hazo al kama mitzvah. So in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, in the introduction, when I call it Hilchos Avodah Zarah, I will judge in general many mitzvos. Mesis, umediach, umavir lamolech, right? An enticer and a seducer of a city to avodah zarah. Umavir lamolech, someone who passes his kids through to molech. Misnabe bishma, one who prophesies in avodah zarah. Ovid osa, and one who worships it. V'zulasan min mitzvos hashayachos l'inyan avodah zarah davka. All of those are relevant to the inyan of avodah zarah specifically. Similarly, if I say the laws of the prohibited items of the altar, I will speak in that grouping. I'll speak about leavened products and honey and blemished animals and harlot's wage and dog's price. And other things like that, because all of these mitzvahs have one theme that encompasses them, namely that they're usher to bring on the mizbeach. Yeah. So I don't know what he meant then when he says, so those are two examples of things that share an inyan, but he also said things that share one goal, one objective. Mm-hmm. So I guess what we'll do, I should have thought about this ahead of time. I'm just realizing this now. Maybe I'll look for an example of that, but if not, when we go through the division ourselves, we'll keep an eye out for how many of these are because they share an inyan and how many of them are for one matara. Okay.
I mean, I think actually like avodah zarah is one matara, not one inyan. Because I think one inyan is like, let's say there's multiple mitzvahs that all have bearing on a like process. And that's a can't think of anything as multiple.
Like mizbeach. Like you have to do. There's a bunch of like shulei mizbeach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say those are all one inyan. Whereas talking about avodah zarah, they're not the same. They're not like the same topic in like a practical sense. They're like, but they are all conceptual. They're all the same like objective of.
So how are you differentiating between objective and inyan?
That inyan is where I'd say multiple mitzvahs are interacting in terms of how the performance is structured. Mm-hmm. Whereas inyan is that they are conceptually grouped but not.
Which didn't you just say inyan? Did you say inyan twice? Or?
I might have said inyan twice.
Yeah, so to say it again, just so I'm sure I know that what you're saying is what I'm thinking.
So inyan is, let's say there's multiple mitzvahs about chametz.
Yeah.
And those are all interact. Like let's say chametz and matzah are, they interact in like a practical sense of how they are set up.
Okay.
Like the chiyuv of eating matzah and the isser of eating chametz don't exist like halachically structurally independently.
Yeah.
Whereas let's say mesis umediach and molech are independent halachic structures, but they're related to the concept of avodah zarah.
Okay, so then my question now is, then did I misread what the Rambam said? Because it sounds like he's saying that avodah zarah is inyan echad.
Yeah. Also, they're not making some and not independent.
I think your video and audio are being obscured, Chaim.
They're not different Yisurim, are they?
Macy's and Medea are different Yisurim.
Can you turn my video off? Can you hear me, Benny, when I turn
now
my
I can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Isn't it like one Isser is just how you open the Isser is different? I don't know what you mean, or what Isaac means that's independent.
Now your audio's not good. Sorry, now your audio's not good. If you want to type it in, then
I'll try typing it.
Okay.
He says avodah zarah, and then says help us sir mizbeach. It seems like he is saying it's like the same.
Yeah, and he uses the word inyan though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a matara thing. Like,
yeah, avodah zarah does seem like that. Why is it an inyan?
See, I if anything, I thought that what Isaac was trying to say for inyan sounds more like matara to me. That they're like, for example,
I'm fine with flipping them because it also works better with the Rambam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let me think of an example here. Because, like, in other words, process-wise, there's no connection between maces and making an idol,
Right.
and believing in omens.
Yeah.
You know, thematically though they are unified.
Right. Well, that's That's
I think I mixed up the definitions of Indian and Matara.
Okay.
Can you define them?
Yeah. So hold on. Maybe I can get this here. Hold on. You know what would help? Let's forget about mitzvos and call it a day. No, I'm just kidding. and then come up with examples in real world phenomena. So let's say, I don't know if this is going to help or hurt, but let me think about it for 1 second here. Okay, let's say, for example, electrical work, plumbing, masonry are all, I would call that matara achas in the sense of they're all necessary for building a house. Okay? But I would say that, I don't know if this helps at all. Okay, but like, you know, eggs, cereal, and toast are all related by inyan in the fact that they share breakfast foods. In other words, those things don't work together to produce an outcome. They just are all in the thing that unifies them is the fact that they're all things that are eaten for breakfast. You know.
Oh yeah.
But like, so in other words, and same thing with like electrical work and masonry and plumbing don't have any inherent relationship to each other unless it's for a matara of building a house. You know, like you could have electrical work in computer hardware, you know, and you know. Now, how's that affect mitzvos? Can we apply that to examples of mitzvos?
Well, so then Avodah Zarah does seem like a matara then, no?
No,
I think it's an inyan because similarly, there's no.
I mean,
I'd say a matara.
I don't know. It's hard, right?
I'd say by a matara, it generally is multiple mitzvahs that are producing like a single like unified set of behaviors. Like let's say like by commenting to matzah, there's all there, but when you're interacting with it, there's like I'd say they kind of blend together to be one phenomenon. It's kind of like one of the, like.
You say the same thing for Avodah
Hold on a second, Chaim.
You feel like when you're learning about them, you're like, oh, there's multiple mitzvahs here, because it feels like all one, like one composite whole.
Got it.
Yeah, sorry, Chaim, what did you say?
I'm seeing why you can't use Avodah Zarah in that same manner.
In what manner?
In the same way that Isaac is describing Matzah.
You would describe Avodah Zarah in the same way that you describe that Isaac described Hilchos Chametz Matzah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're saying, Isaac? Or are you saying they're different? No. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it would be totally different because you can say like, no, I don't know, client, but also no, but like, and no, shaving your head or whatever.
Right.
To Syria or Zara, but you can talk about one without talking about the other.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be a matzah.
Oh.
No,
okay.
that would be
yeah, right. Yeah, you did scare me. Yeah.
Like shaving your head and bowing down to an idol don't like.
Process-wise, they're not related.
They have nothing to do with each other.
But they both partake of Avodah Zarah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like philosophical.
Yeah.
When you define them, I thought, and you said objective, I thought you meant objective vis-a-vis humanity, not objective in terms of the halachic.
Right. Yeah. So I'll tell you what the terms I was tempted to use, but then I got scared. Is I was going to say formal cause versus efficient cause. Yeah. Right. Is that in terms of what they are versus in terms of how they work together.
Okay.
But then I thought maybe that's not the best way to do it. Maybe I'm just plugging in Aristotelian categories. You know. Yeah. So final cause is what you thought with philosophical objective. Yeah, which still could be the case. Maybe that's what he. All right. So now I'm saying that's what you thought initially with Matara. You're saying.
Yeah, that's why.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I wasn't saying about Indian, but I was like, Okay, that's definitely.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So the real question, again, I feel like when we go, eventually in this shiur, we plan to go through the his division of mitzvos. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, because I'm thinking of things like hilchos, shofar, sukkah, velulav.
Right. That's a.
Hard to say that's an Inyan, right?
Yes,
It's
also hard to say
it's also hard to say it's a matara, right? I think it's hard to say it's an Inyan. Yeah, no, I think you have more.
One like sukkah experience. I don't know.
Shofar?
Oh, not shofar. No.
Yeah, that's the hard one, right? Or so, what about Sefer Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzah? Because there it sounds like.
That's ksiva.
Yeah, so that I would call matara.
Yeah, that seems like
right? Because they all involve sophros, right? Yeah, sophistry. Yeah. So
wouldn't that be an Indian then? They all partake of ksiva?
No, because I'm saying ksiva as a process, as opposed to Inyan is like a theme. Like the theme of Torah, of Sefer Torah, and the theme of Tefillin. I mean, you could argue that they're the same. They're clearly related, right? But but I think that they're all in one spot because of their process. They involve the same process.
Yeah. I feel like we had a lot of back and forth about what's an Indian versus what's Do you want to say what you think?
Okay, I thought you were saying that it's a.
I don't know what I'm saying, so maybe you know better than I do.
I thought you were saying if the things have a similarity, then they're the same Indian.
Okay.
If you can look at this thing and look at that thing, and they both have a similarity with each other, then that's a.
I think that's not going to be useful quality because that's going to extend to both of them.
No. As opposed to they're actually structurally interrelated.
Structurally, right? So that's okay. Structurally interrelated. That's what I was saying as a matara. Yeah.
Okay.
And Inyan, I'm saying, is a theme or a philosophical objective is Inyan also.
Right.
Like shaving your payos and doing sorcery.
And abstractly.
Right.
As opposed to structure.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think we got it, but the real test will be, can we tomorrow, I mean, we're just going to go on, but like tomorrow, say it clearly. Let's let it sit.
Yes.
And we'll see if we can come back. Okay, let's go onward now. Ulaman. Oh, Chaim, did I overlook what you were saying?
No, I didn't end up asking the question since we were asking it anyways.
Okay, all right. Okay, so where are we at now? Ulaman matara zo ra'isi. We're at that paragraph, right? The new paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay. Ulaman matara zo ra'isi shetzarach limnos tchila b'hakdamas hasefer minyan kol mitzvos. Therefore, in order to reach this matara. Oh, he said matara. I saw that it was necessary to count in the beginning, in the introduction of the book, the number of all the mitzvos, aseh velos aseh, both positive and negative, so that the division of the book will include all of them. So just to show you what he's talking about, we'll go through this more in depth later. In the Mishneh Torah, the Hakdama is divided into 4 parts. There's the Hakdama. Okay. The Hakdama proper. Then there's the Minyan HaMitzvos, where he lists every mitzvah as a sentence and says a pasuk.
And that's split up.
By Aseh and Los Aseh, yeah. So that's Aseh is part 2, and then Los Aseh is part 3. And then he has what's called the Halukas Asfarim, where he goes through each of the books and shows which mitzvah is in which book. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the first one.
Hakdama, then Aseh, then Los Aseh. I guess you can count that as one. Hakdama, then Aseh, Minyan HaMitzvos, and then Halukas Asfarim. Those go at 3 parts of the intro. So what the Rambam is talking about in the Sefer Mitzvos now is his plan for the Minyan HaMitzvos, where he just lists every mitzvah, 1 sentence, and has the pasuk. Okay, and just so you know also, the ordering is the same in the Minyan and Mitzvos here as it is in the Sefer Mitzvos, but the Chalukas Asfarim is the order based on topic. Yeah. Okay, so why did he do this? So that the division of the Sefer will include all of them. And there will not remain any mitzvah of which I did not talk about all of its laws. Im levada, whether alone, kugon hasukkah v'halulav, v'tzitzis v'tefillin. I guess back then he was planning on making each of those its own section. Because each one of them is possible to speak about on its own. O al klal mitzvos mehen kagon ma shehiz karnu, or on a general category of mitzvos like we explained, that's avodah zarah. Achar shenimne osan, after we count them, v'nomar ki ela hilchos avodah zarah, yish behen kach v'kach mitzvos aseh v'hen elu v'elu, v'kach v'kach mitzvos lo aseh v'hen elu v'elu. So he wants to be able to list all of them and then say at the beginning of each section, Hilchos Sukkah, and it has 2 mitzvos in it. Hilchos Avodah Zarah has 50 mitzvos in it. Kol zeh, now why, this is the interesting part, Kol zeh, kedei lehishamer lebal yimalid mimeni davar shelo adaber alav. All of this in order to, as a precaution against omitting something that I should speak about. But when I go over the count of the mitzvos, I'll be certain about this. So in plain English, what does he say? Why is he saying he needs to count all the mitzvos?
To be thorough.
To be thorough and to make sure he doesn't miss out on one. You know? Okay, I mean, I don't know. I found that funny.
Also, why does that mean?
Write down his own list and then just like go over it.
Sorry, what was that? Say again?
Rather than writing a sefer about the mitzvos, you can just like.
Oh, so he hasn't yet said he's going to write a sefer about the mitzvos. Right now he's talking about the plan to make the minyan and mitzvos in the beginning of the.
So that makes sense.
No, why does he have to put it in the book necessarily?
Yeah, right. Make your own private list, you know. And for example, he doesn't make a list of derabbanans to make sure he didn't miss any one of those.
Right.
You know, like I don't know, little sketchy. But so I don't have an answer to that. We can think about that though.
Yeah, I mean maybe as a proof of like completeness. Like these are there are 613 mitzvahs. And
Yeah.
You can see here's a list of all of them. And I wrote about all of these.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it's like a seal of approval thing.
Yeah, that makes more sense. The question is that what he means, right? Sounds like he's saying, yeah. Let's see. L'bal yimalit mimeni davar shelo adaber alav.
It sounds like he's saying it for himself.
It does sound like it. Yeah. I mean, I'm not ruling out what you're saying. Yeah. Because here's the thing. Also, is if his whole thing is brevity and practicality, so counting the mitzvahs has nothing to do with practicality, and it's taking away brevity because now he has a whole new section, right? And if it's a matter of caring about the number of 613, I mean, he's already doing away with Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's order, right? You know, so like it doesn't quite fit as squarely into his program as the other stuff he's mentioned. You know, it's just like, so I don't forget anything. Like, yeah, it fits in the sense that he wants to make sure he includes everything, but so just make sure you include everything, you know? So I don't quite know. I was also going to mention a side point here. I guess it's not really a point on here, but I'll mention it anyway. Is you're aware that there's it's not unanimous that there are 613?
It's just like
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like one more sentence,
So
right?
yeah, Rav Simlai is the source in the Gemara, at least in our Gemara, that there's 613. But you have basically a machlokus. The way I view it is there's really 3 sides. There are the Rambam and the Ramban who hold, I mean, it's not just them, but who hold that there are exactly 613, and then they have all of the fighting about the number. A Bahag also is in that category, but there have to be 613, okay. Then there are those who say that 613 is an approximation, just like when they tell you in elementary school that there are 613 seeds in a pomegranate, you know.
I actually just heard that for the first time.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't even go to Jewish elementary school and I heard that, yeah.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. So like Ibn Ezra and a Yesh Omrim quoted by the Ramban hold that. They hold that like it's an approximate count. And I once asked Rav Pesach, I think, about that. I shouldn't quote his name. Erase that. I did ask him, but I believe he said that the idea behind 613 is that there is like a, for lack of a better analogy, like in the Constitution, in the U.S. Constitution, there's like a bedrock of like things that everything has to like flow from. That's a horribly inarticulate sentence. Forget that. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna scrap that. I gotta think about it some more. I'll get back to you on that. But then the third shita is the. What was that?
The foundation that's built off of.
Yeah, but I'm trying to say a little bit more than that also.
Axioms of the system.
Axioms of the system, but with a sense of like preventing proliferation of stuff, of like making sure everything fits into that. I don't know exactly how to articulate that. Yeah. And then the third sheet is the weirdest one, which is the Rambam holds that the Rambam, spoiler alert, the Rambam is about to go through and talk about how he identified all of the rules that constitute what makes something a mitzvah. And the Rambam holds that the Rambam got all the rules right, but he didn't apply them correctly. And if you apply them correctly, then you'll get more than 613. So the Rambam doesn't care about the number 613, but he does care about that there are definite criteria for what counts as a mitzvah and what doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. But the Rambam and the Ramban are like, people think they're always arguing. Here, I mean, they also argue, but like, they insist that there have to be 613, which is why they play the whole game of like, well, if you count this, then you have to not count something else. Whereas according to Ibn Ezra and Yesh Omrim, whatever, man, like, you got 614, okay, we'll let you in,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it makes more, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, like, the Gemara never argues about that. Like, there's no arguments about what. Right,
exactly, yeah. The whole endeavor of counting the mitzvos is like a Rishonik thing or a Gaonic thing. I don't know when it started. Because Sadigon also is a Sefer mitzvos. I don't know what he holds. Okay, so then he says, so that's what I was saying is like, the whole idea of 613, the only thing that we said it goes against, it's not consistent with the Rambam's project. If he keeps it because he thinks it's valuable somehow, then we have to ask, what is that value? And he clearly does hold it's valuable from the sense that he cares about the count of 613, So that would be an open question. Okay, let's probably do one more thing. V'kasher hisbar li ha'inyan hazev, amarti l'chaber es ha-sefer, u'lahazkir es kol ha-mitzvos be'ofen stami, v'limnosan b'hagdamas ha-sefer. Oh, okay, this is ready for, if you have a sympathy for the Bahag, get it out, because you're going to need it. Okay, he says, when this matter became clear to me, and I arose to compile the Sefer, and to mention all the mitzvos in a general manner, that's like, again, that's the Sefer, the minyan mitzvos in the Mishneh Torah, and to count them in the introduction to the book, I don't know exactly how to say it, Takafani tsa'ar, I became seized with pain. Shekvarni ta'arti bo zeh shanim, pain which I already had for many years. Okay, it acted up. V'hu, namely, sheminyan ha-mitzvos, kvar shagu bo be'inyanim, shelo ucha latayr otzim zarusam, that the counting of the mitzvos, people have already erred in ways that I cannot describe due to the intensity of their strangeness. Okay. Anyone who involved themselves in counting the mitzvos, or in compiling a sefer on something, and this is where he glares at the Bahag, or something. Yeah, thank you. Something about this. This is where he glares at the Bahag. Kulam nimshahu achar bal halachos gedolos. All of them were drawn after the Bahag. V'lo natu mikavanosav. They did not deviate from his intentions. B'minyanan in their count. Ela natia ma'ata, except a little bit. Kilo kafa'u hadeos etzel divrei ha'ish hazeh, as if minds were frozen with the words of that man. Meaning, like, he said his thing, and then people stopped thinking, and their minds just froze.
Kind of what happened with the Rambam.
Yeah, irony. Vafilu bal sefer hamitzvos hamafursam, even the author of the popular sefer mitzvos, which I don't think we have, is that Rav Chayfetz? Hakavana sefer mitzvos show Rav Chayfetz ben Yatzliach. Yeah, I have never seen that sefer. Yeah, this is the type of name that Ibn Ezra would make fun of and say, Isha she'eno matzliach, that's a, but that's basically what the Rambam is going to say right now. But feel bal sefer mitzvos hamafursam. Ra'isi shenis orer al chelik katan mishagios bal halachos. He noticed a small portion of the errors of the bal halachos. V'haya kasha be'enav limnos bikor cholim v'nichum avelim k'fi shemana bal halachos. It was difficult for him to count visiting the sick or comforting the mourners like the bal halachos counted. Umash haya kasha be'enav hu be'emes kasha. And that which was difficult in his eyes is actually difficult. Meaning, yeah, you had a hard time. That's because it's not a good svara. But he wrote something that's more difficult than that. And he was drawn after that, which is even more strange. Like is clear to one who looks into his words, these words of his. But God knows, the Lord knows, that the more I thought about their errors in their count, that they counted what at first glance shouldn't have even, you could see it shouldn't be counted. And this one was drawn after that one. In this manner, belief bonus without any understanding. Gadol be'inai asonenu. Our dire circumstances were great in my eyes. And the Lord's intimidation upon us was verified. He'll say what he means. He's going to quote Yeshayahu Hanavi. Vathilechem chazus hakol kedivre hasefer hachasum asher yiznu oso el yodea hasefer lemor kara nazeh va'amar lo uchal ki chasumhu. So this is part nevuah from Yeshayahu, who says it's like you give. The vision of everyone was like, meaning maybe we'll see this inside later. The vision of everyone was like the words of a sealed book, that you give it to someone who knows how to read, and you say, read this, and he says, I can't, it's sealed. So what he's saying basically, I do want to go into this in depth, but that due to the Bahag and people like him and drawn after him, then this became like a sealed book. The Torah became like a sealed book because their conception of what a mitzvah is so messed up. Hold on just a second here. How much, what?
Like the fact that the Bahag counts turbans that have a drasha?
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. Actually, I think this is a good place to stop because he's then going to say the Sefer HaMitzvos project. What I'd like to do, I think, is finish. I want to start tomorrow with looking at that nevuah in context because Rabbi Sachs told me that I should look at that. I think that's the one he told me I should look at, and try to understand what. Yeah, he said we should be sure to look at Yeshayahu Perek Chavtes with the Radak. That's my instructions from my Rebbe, my Chumash Rebbe, my Rambam Rebbe also. So let's start off with that, and then I think we'll finish the intro to Sefer Mitzvos tomorrow. And yeah,
Okay.
alrighty.
Okay.
All right, see you, Chaim. Thanks for joining.
All right.